You're listening to a fight against free kill laws from AMP Media Production Studio.
Welcome to the Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we give a voice to those who have suffered firsthand from medical malpractice. In Florida, families devastated by medical negligence are left without justice because of a law many don't even know exists. Florida's free kill law prevents families from holding doctors accountable. These are real stories with real loss and no justice. Contact Ed at 561-239-2417 or visit afreekill.com. Today we uncover the truth, share real stories, and demand change.
Good evening and welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us and taking your time from your day to listen to our podcast. We have something that I'm very excited about presenting to you. We had a guest a couple of weeks ago, Travis Creighton, and this guy is a data generating machine. And I was advised by Daryl Parrott that Travis may have come across something that could be a blockbuster for our cause. So for the first part of the show here, I've asked Travis to come back and explain a little bit about what it is that he's discovered. Can we bring Travis in now, please? Travis, I know you've been on the road all day. You still have a life. You have a job, but I appreciate you taking the time to do this for us.
My pleasure.
So tell us, what is it that Daryl was so excited about?
I found in the Florida State Archives the staff analysis on Senate Bill 324 that says CS SB 324 expands the definition of survivors to include adult children. And what that tells me is they did not have an understanding of the framework back then as to who already had rights according to the pre-1968 statutes that existed at the time. If you look at the 1967 statutes, 768.21 and .02, we already had rights, and we had them concurrent with the decedent's rights. Right now, under modern law, we have to choose who we go under, survivor rights or not. And the estate can recover certain dependents, or the spouse recovers first, and then there's a tier of children and such. But back in the 1967 statutes, which are protected by Kluger v. Wright, that requirement of tiers did not exist. Everybody could have a claim. And so go ahead.
I'm sorry. So what you're suggesting is that if the very framework that the current law was created under was essentially unconstitutional, then what could be the consequences of this?
In my mind, non-attorney, it's for the justices to say, is the statute 768.21 subsection 8 as it exists today was void at the time it was enacted, because they never did the requirements that Kluger v. White requires, and that is to find no alternative means. In the record for the House and the Senate, there is no proof that they ever did that.
Interesting. Well,
it's amazing no one's looked for 35 years, at the birth of the bill, all the way through it becoming law, to verify that the legal aspects have been adhered to.
Well, we can only speculate as to that.
True, that's for a judge to decide.
Well, do you have a game plan here to continue to pursue this?
Yes, I'm waiting on the Second District Court of Appeals to address an existing mandamus. So that's tied up the civil side. However, In probate, I am looking to bring a facial challenge to Florida Statute 768.21, subsection 8, and 2 or 3 other statutes that relate to it. They're tied together. And I've given it to the attorney to look over and to adjust as needed. And I hope to have it filed by the end of the week.
Are you sure you're not an attorney?
Not yet. Well, pro se, you have to represent yourself. So I'm my own attorney, I guess. You know what they say about that. But that's what the law forced upon me.
That's extremely interesting. And, when I think about just the stories that we've heard on these podcasts, some of the tragic events of people, young and old, that just were FUBARs. They were medical FUBARs, and for no recourse to be taken. It's just it's hard to comprehend. I don't know if you watched the show last week. We had a lady, Victoria Morrison, and she had an older sister, a 20-year veteran, Army veteran. She retired from the Army as a master sergeant, and she started having difficulty breathing. No understanding, no understanding of what the cause was. They live in North Miami. I don't know how familiar you are with the South Florida area, but they were in the North Miami area. The paramedics come. They're going to take her to the nearest hospital. This 20-year vet requests to be sent to the VA. Their reason for not doing it, they stated, was that she wouldn't make it. Yet, it was 48 hours later when she passed away without ever being on a ventilator. Now, I'm a respiratory therapist. I'm trying to understand how they determined that she couldn't survive an additional 35, 40 minutes at the most. If that ambulance was going code 3 down I-95 from North Miami to Jackson Memorial, I just don't understand why they declined to take her to the VA, where, there might have been a much different outcome.
Are the EMTs qualified to make that determination?
I believe they have established protocols where on whatever the assessed acuity of the patient is, then they're going to go to the nearest hospital. I know, for instance, like with any kind of head trauma or any suspicion of possible head trauma, then they have to go to the nearest trauma center, regardless of what the patient's desire is. The protocols like that exist, but I don't see how that came into play in her case. We could go on forever, but I'm excited, just like everyone else in the movement is, to everything that you turn up. And folks, Travis sends us a lot of emails. Most of it I have no understanding what he's talking about. But the thing that the people that are opposing us should understand is that we are a very varied population from very many different walks of life, and we are not ignorant people. And the arguments that have been thrown at us, the explanations for why some of our loved ones have perished, if they don't hold water, then they simply hide behind these ridiculous laws. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Daryl? Anything?
Well, I'm interested to see what the legislature will do, because I've sent this information to bill sponsor Trabucci. I've also sent some prior information to both judiciary committees, the House and the Senate. And I would like to see that they be proactive and establish a finding of unconstitutionality without having to go through the courts. but I'm gearing up to try to bring it to the courts in case they don't.
Well, Representative Tribussi has been one of our champions.
Yes.
She's an amazing woman. And if you do get some feedback from her, we'd be anxious to hear about it. So, share it with us.
All right, we'll do.
Okay, and I'm looking forward to the next delegation meeting that I'll be attending anyway, in Miami, at Miami-Dade Community
to be there.
College. Excuse
I
me?
plan to go to that.
Oh, do you?
I plan to go to that one on the 15th.
Wonderful, Walt. Yes. Well, then I'll have an opportunity to introduce you to Veronica. She will be there also. All right. Well, again, thank you very, very much for your time, Travis. We'll be talking again soon.
Wonderful. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to take a very, very short break, and then we'll be back to conclude the podcast, okay?
Imagine this. A loved one, a son or a daughter, has just suffered from a life-threatening accident. They're transported to a state trauma hospital, and despite being in the care of professional physicians, they tragically pass away due to preventable medical errors. As if this was not tragic enough, then finding out that legal statutes in the state of Florida devalue your loved one's life to zero. This is what we are fighting against. Come join Edward Salazar as he discusses the issues surrounding free kill laws and how to resolve them. Catch The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar on Monday, 5 p.m. on all social media. Learn who we are and join our cause today. Welcome back to The Fight Against Free Kill Laws, where we expose the truth about medical malpractice and the families left behind. Under Florida's free kill law, if a victim is over 25 and unmarried, their death means nothing in the eyes of the law. No accountability, no justice. If this happened to your loved one, would you accept silence?
You're listening to A Fight Against Free Kill Laws from AMP Media Production Studio.
All right, friends, thanks for staying with us. I had a completely different plan for this podcast yesterday. But when I woke up this morning, I woke up and I felt angry. I was upset. And I'm pretty sure it had something to do with a dream that I had had. And I've decided that I want to make a direct call. I want to call out the people that are opposing the abolishment of these laws. Let me give you just a quick review of what happened in our particular case. Again, my son was in a terrible accident. He had a very severe head injury, but for 18 consecutive days, he showed progress. He showed improvement. Neurologically, he was doing so well, and he got weaned off the ventilator on April 1st. He was off the ventilator. He was doing so well that pulmonology signed off the case. They were no longer even visiting him on a daily basis. He was doing that well. Okay, then on April 9th, he passes away from cardiopulmonary arrest after a 30-minute resuscitation effort with his mother and I standing outside his room. You cannot imagine the trauma. When we went into discovery to try to find out what was happening, and we received his medical records, the one most glaring thing that stood out in nursing documentation, there's a document called a MAR, M-A-R. It stands for Medical Administration Record. The medicines that were administered, the administration record. Can we pull that picture up, please? It's the one with yellow. It has his morphine and Ativan records. No, I'm sorry. The other one, please. Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry. It was in red. Okay, now what this shows is, this shows the medications, the opioids that were given to Christopher. And you can see up until April 4th, he was getting morphine, in pretty good doses pretty regularly. And this was, he had to be controlled, he had to be quiet, he had to heal. As I said, he had very, very substantial cranial injuries. But when he was weaned from the ventilator, you can see there it says off ventilator. Okay, wean, from the morphine. Look down every date from that. Not only did they not stop giving him morphine, they also started giving him Ativan. Now, he's no longer getting mechanical ventilatory support, yet he's given a pain reliever, which is also a very, very potent respiratory depressant. It depresses the respiratory drive. On the last day, on April 9th, look what was administered. Now this is we didn't get this until discovery, when we decided that we were going to try to pursue a wrongful death suit. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm getting. Okay. Go to the next one, please, Freddie, with the numbers on it. Okay. This, folks, is the smoking gun. The body is a remarkable thing, and it has all sorts of mechanisms where it tries itself to compensate when things are out of balance. These values are taken from what's called an arterial blood gas analysis. And the body, normally the amount of CO2 in your bloodstream, or in your arterial blood, is about 40 millimeters of mercury. Okay, and that that's pretty much standard. If the CO2 starts to rise, then that's usually an indication of some issue with ventilation. In this case, what we believe was that Christopher's respiratory drive was being suppressed by the medication. But how do you know how long this has been going on? Well, remember when I said the body tries to compensate? Okay, normal bicarb levels in a body are about 24 milliequivalents, plus or minus a couple. You can see that his bicarb level was 33. Now, he had not been given any bicarb. It had not been administered to for whatever reason. This was what his body levels were without any outside administration, because his system was trying to compensate for the elevated pH, the decreased pH. He was becoming more acidotic because of the elevated CO2. This is the smoking gun. And also the fact that in spite of receiving 100% oxygen, instead of a normal PO2 of 90 or above, his was 68. Now, bells and whistles should have been going off. Why did they not? Now, without going through the whole thing all over again, I'll stop there just to say there is clear evidence that something terribly, terribly wrong happened, and that measures should have been taken to mitigate the result, Christopher's death. This shouldn't have happened. Simply monitoring his expired CO2 at bedside, a technology that was right there. It was right there. It just had not been employed. They were using it while he was on the ventilator. Once he came off the ventilator, they discontinued it. Okay, had they looked at the elevated heart rate, the elevated respiratory rate, the decreasing saturations, and thought, maybe we ought to just put that little cuvette back on his airway. They would have known 12 hours before he passed away that there was something wrong. They wouldn't have had to wait for an arterial blood gas 1 hour before he coded. Okay, now if something this terribly, terribly egregious can happen without consequence, what does that say? What does that say about medicine in Florida? You know, I hear politicians, I hear our governor, I hear them say that these laws are necessary because without them we would have skyrocketing insurance premiums. No doctors would come to Florida. Well, what's the message? If you're a terrible doctor, if you've had trouble someplace else, come to Florida. We got laws that will protect you. Is that the message? You know, we have an active campaign that I hope we can get a lot of support for. As in previous shows, we showed the billboard campaign. Daryl Pruitt started this, and he started this out of his own pocket because he was so incensed. You know, once not only the monumental grief of losing his son, but incensed by the lack of accountability taken by the state. Okay, now this campaign we think is making a lot of headway. If you would like to help this, and as I've said, you know, on every other podcast, any contribution is, can we pull up? There we go. Okay, this is where you could go to help. www.floridafreekill.org. That you click on that little red dialog box, and anything you could do to help us would be greatly appreciated. We plan on spreading this campaign all over the state. Right now, that billboard, I believe, is on I-95 South, just as you cross into Georgia, or excuse me, just as you cross into Florida from Georgia. You know, I would like to call out Senator Harrell, Senator Diskley, Senator Passidomo, Representative Wyman. You know, these are people who voted against the abolishment. Excuse me. These are people who voted against the abolishment of this law, while the rest of the legislature overwhelmingly voted to approve it. And the evening before, Governor DeSantis issued his veto. He didn't meet with family members. He didn't meet with victims. He met with lobbyists. Okay, if you want to know why we are so incensed, if you want to know why we are so intense, please put up, if you can, put up that picture of Christopher and I. I'm sorry, where I did it. Okay, that's my son. That's my youngest of two sons. We were celebrating the marriage of his older brother. You know, Governor DeSantis, you have a beautiful family. And I'm sure there is no limit to the measure of love that you have for them. If something happened to one of your children, like happened to mine, what would you do to try to get justice? What would you do to try to get accountability? friends, I'll end this podcast like this. I've said this before within our circle. You know, politicians understand two things. They understand money and they understand numbers. Okay, well, the lobbyists have the money. There's nothing we can do about that. But we can do something about our numbers. Now, I don't care what your political affiliation is. And again, now I'm speaking to legislators. I don't care what your political affiliation is. You know, we in the Florida Medical Rights Association, we cover the full, 180 degrees, far right, far left. But we are all 100% in solidarity. We are in lockstep agreement on what we are going to do to try to get this law abolished. We will vote together. We have lists of the legislators that voted for it and the legislators that voted against it. And that is going to decide what we do at the ballot box. Have a good evening and happy holidays.
Thank you for watching The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we interview those who have dealt firsthand with medical malpractice. Families are devastated by medical malpractice and left with no justice. This isn't just a loophole. It's a failure to protect the ones we love. It's time to change the law. It's time for accountability. Contact your state legislatures, visit afreekill.com for more information on how to help, or contact Ed at 561-239-2417. Because every life should matter.
You're listening to A Fight Against Free Kill Laws from AMP Media Production Studio.